Top 10 signs we are entering a new dark age. Before we start, we have to clear something up. The dark ages were not dark. In fact, a large portion of the reasons individuals think the early Middle Ages were dark are only regular confusions about the era. In the prologue to Top 10 Reasons the Middle Ages Were Not Dark, I said, he termed Dark Ages is almost as ancient as the actual period. It was instituted during the 1330s by Petrarch, the Italian scholar, to allude to the decrease of Latin literature. It was later taken by the Protestant reformers, 16th century, and then the individuals from the Enlightenment, 18th century, as a derogatory term with a lot broader implications, because they saw their own edification as absent from the earlier period. Top 10 terrifying assaults on free speech happening right now in 2011. I thought of one of our most controversial articles. Top 10 reasons we should revive the Dark Ages. Since we are apparently seeing that materialize, I am starting to change my mind. Here, regrettably, are the top 10 signs that we are currently entering into a new age of darkness. 10. Social media censorship. Twitter has as of late announced a new instrument in their battle against free discourse and the quest for astuteness, individual by individual impeding. The new setting will allow clients to choose who can and cannot answer to their tweets. At the end of the day, you can curate a whole debate wherein just those individuals who agree with your point will be noticeable to anyone reading. Facebook is presently adding notifications to certain presence on warn individuals that they may contain false information, in any event, when they don't, and Instagram is erasing posts that may cause offense to certain individuals. On top of all of this, whole gatherings are as a rule through and through banned from all of the aforementioned locales for just culpable others or spreading information which the proprietors of those destinations don't agree with, if they are correct. In the US, where a large portion of these companies are based, they are inside their legal rights to stifle free discourse. The final answer for these unpleasant attacks on the sharing of information is for new destinations to arise liberated by political bias of billionaire proprietors and investors who consider the to-be line as being a higher priority than the adoration for wisdom. 1. Incidentally, go ahead and add me as a companion on Facebook. I guarantee I will not control you. 9. Suppression of speakers on campuses. Milo speaks out after Berkeley discourse is closed down. The right to speak freely of discourse incorporates the option to fight discourse you disagree with. The individuals who punch protesters at rallies can no more claim to help free discourse than Lenin could claim to help capitalism. Yet, there's practicing your democratic right to dissent, and then there's utilizing that option to totally close down the perspectives you're challenging. As of late, it appears to be that protesters are aiming exclusively for the latter. The idea of creating a climate your rival is afraid to enter appears to have really taken off around 2013. Preceding that, fights at campuses rarely hindered a welcome speaker from attending. Today, you hear about cancelled addresses with mind desensitizing regularity. Speakers like Milo Yiannopoulos, cut above, have been chased off school campuses, as have speakers like favorable to abortion Supreme Court equity Carol Bayer. Each time it happens, it demonstrates how little value is presently placed on free discourse and illuminated debate, versus just yelling your foe down. We ought to be unfathomably worried that alleged bastions of free discourse, namely colleges, are presently the wellspring of such a lot of anti-opportunity. At the point when debate closes, so does the disclosure of new information. This is probably a fun opportunity to suggest our rundown on top 10 ways college makes you dumb. 2. 8. YouTube censorship. 10 bizarre anomalies and conspiracies of the moon. The people pulling all the strings at Google have chosen to save us from ourselves and smother conspiracy hypotheses and other substance they detest. Their reason is that they are keeping us from being deluded. That certainly infers an extraordinarily insightful statement by T.S. Eliot. The greater part of the evil in this world is finished by individuals with sincere goals. The motivation of Google, in the event that it is valid, can appear to be from temperate beginnings. However, there is one issue: conspiracy speculations are regularly obvious. For example, Project MK Ultra, the sickening CIA mind control analyze. And what about the hypothesis that help for the Iraq War was falsely created because of lies about babies being tossed from incubators? And speaking of wars, the Vietnam War was based on one great large untruth, discussed distinctly in conspiracy hypothesis circles until the CIA affirmed it to be valid. I'm, obviously, alluding to the Gulf of Tonkin episode. What number of conversations of conspiracies are being taken out and covered up by Google at the present time? And definitely right presently is the point at which we most need these conversations around China and the coronavirus and the deep state in governmental issues. Fortunately, because of the fact that Listverse deals just occasionally in conspiracies, our video above has been ignored so far by Google Blue Pencils. Appreciate it while you can. 3. 7. Google search destruction. In the last 3 decades we have handed over the curation of the wealth of human information to a company that had the saying, "Don't be underhanded," until 2018 when it discreetly placed it in the last sentence of its set of principles, presently an afterthought. The last 2 years have seen Google logically obliterate the quality of its search results, first filling them with supported posts and now, as of May 2020, apparently replacing the whole file with results that give Google and its companions financial help during coronavirus. Online webmaster discussions are loaded with website proprietors declaring their locales dead as 50 to 70% of their traffic from search has been slashed in favor of enormous brand results from companies aligned with Google's perspective. It is probably fair to say that the fate of the internet is one in which most search results end in a 404 mistake, page not found. Google is adequately closing down the internet. With all the search traffic gone, the destinations that do remain will be constrained to look to membership models. 4. 6. Chained Bibles. Recollect the chained Bibles from the last dark ages. Hint. They were chained up because they were staggeringly valuable, not to stop individuals reading them. Prepare to be blown away. They're returning. As Google has started what is by all accounts its final onslaught against small and medium information websites and YouTubers, more information is either disappearing or is being bolted behind paywalls and membership models. This is something we talked about for Listverse in the past. Once all the best substance is bolted away, we will have finally reached where the web is the exact inverse of what it was meant to be. Instead of the dissemination of information to the entire world for nothing, paid for by ads clearly, we will have a firmly bolted vault of information for just the individuals who can afford to read it. And dissimilar to the Bible in the Middle Ages, we don't have web clerics who can read it to us consistently. This really is the intentional removal of learning for all yet a first-class rich. And incidentally, this isn't just about small websites and creators. 5. Top 10 ridiculous instances of censorship in pop culture. 5. Joe Rogan Spotify. JRE is moving to Spotify. The greatest name in podcasting has recently announced that he is moving to Spotify where, for the burden of paying attention to an ad, you can access his podcasts. He is probably the main huge name to disclose to Google he will not tolerate their oversight. As of recently, Rogan was earning $36 million a year for his podcasts with Google, yet Spotify tricked him in with a guarantee of $100 million. It is no big surprise he will take the danger and move to a paid help. It is great for Joe as far as control, until Spotify gets purchased by Google or starts to execute its own limitations on content. It does, however, serve to show us exactly how prohibitive access to information will become. Only the truth will surface eventually whether a mass migration of substance makers to this new platform will serve to broaden or diminish our overall access to information. We are seeing a consolidation right now into a couple of very large corporations and their standards and morals, or lack thereof, will decide whose voices and what stories we all hear in the future. 6. 4. Wayback Machine censorship. Who controls the past? The party slogan read, controls the future. Who controls the present? Controls the past. The words from George Orwell's novel, The Terrible Image, 1984, sound plausible, in particular, to this day. Wayback Machine or Internet Archive is a wonderful website, with pictures of many details, of the World Wide Web that will last for decades. Namely, in many cases they have been used in order to detect misleading editing of mainstream media. But unfortunately, this is a dangerous part of the dark path of censorship. Recently, Wayback Machine has started highlighting some previous pages, as well as misinformation, especially when it comes to the coronavirus. It is with a retrospective effect that asserts that historical news or events that were not true. It's only a matter of time before they can start presenting the original or replacing misinformation and facts, as defined by the anonymous movement behind the scenes. 3 free discussions in the Scientific Center. Noah Carl, human race, IQ, and academic freedom. Scientists and doctors are regularly sent for discovery, even for accepting theories that are now considered contrary to the ideas of the proven scientific consensus, argumentum ad verecundium. The fear of causing injury, or even worse, a crime scene for someone who has a very large social media presence, pretty much faces such a terrible situation. Scientists should not be stifled, and no matter how offensive their conclusions or points of view are, they should be out in the fresh air and lead the discussion. If we can't argue against an idea, how can we allow them to be wrong, or prove that their opposite is true? Area, breed and gender, a new theology must be created, and the question of the right to be a heretic through shame and new and burn them at the stake. 2. Zombie apocalypse. This is the first thing I did when New Zealand restaurants and shops reopened after the coronavirus shutdown. Spent a day in the city, looking around the shops and having lunch with friends. New guarantees that will allow us to be open, and some stores limit the number of customers in stores at any given time. This led to a queue of several of our base stores, queues such as are usually only seen in communist or socialist states. Wellington is a city, not shopping malls. The streets are filled with people politely waiting on the shops, while the view seems to be calling them by their own hands. It dawned on me that the zombie apocalypse isn't something out of a horror movie or TV series, and here it is. Instead of talking and sharing their experiences and knowledge, instead of reading a book or even a magazine, people are playing games or watching YouTube videos that Google hasn't choked on, but nonetheless. This is the only way, and on a voluntary basis. Until you see a street full of people with blank faces staring at the bottom, so you can't really appreciate how awful it really is. So, be free if we have to destroy the brain, so we can also have the freedom to choose not to make them stop. This seems unlikely at this stage. I hope I'm wrong. 9. 1. Historical sources and cannot be displayed. Social distancing. It was a serious knock-on effect that was unexpected. With some places banning cash because paper is what provides a good environment for viruses, it is highly likely to think that setting up areas of human knowledge such as libraries and, to a lesser extent, museums, and, ultimately, can also be done in the name of public safety. This might partially be manageable if it weren't for the fact that the rest of the items in this list also pass through at the same time. As soon as all parties disappear, except for the suspect in Wikipedia, eventually a Google search will start the Holocaust, and we were able to finally free ourselves from the shared resource of knowledge and experience of our ancestors that we built for our great and beautiful in society. 10.